All right, let's do it. In case we haven't met or you don't know of me, my name is Jessica Franta. I am the Investor Relations Manager for Trius Lending Partners. Super excited to be here. Really, kind of just before we go into it, some ground rules. Mostly, I'm going to present, but absolutely Q&A. We not only encourage it, it sometimes often becomes like the best part of the presentation. So open to any and all questions. Happy to answer any and all questions, and we get them all. I think on a recent webinar, somebody asked Josh, like, how do you guys even make money? So that's totally fine. If you're curious, please ask away. There is a Q&A where you can actually enter the questions. And if for some reason you're having a hard time with that, we will also be monitoring the chat and can take questions from the chat as well. But we'll really kind of leave that towards the latter end of the presentation, and I'll leave a lot of time and room and space for that as well. So that's sort of just kind of the one, I guess, ground rule before we begin. And with that in mind, I think we'll get this started. So today's webinar, yep, effortless real estate investing, and a little overview about Trius Lending Partners before we really start discussing investment opportunities with us. You know, Trius was founded and started in 2003 by Mr. Steve Bond. And really what he was doing was short-term loans, AKA notes. We use those terms synonymously, as it were, to real estate investors. And for most of you that are attending today, probably actually do know me, but in case you don't, I was one of those investors. So I was a borrower. My husband and I were buying some small kind of single family fix and flip or fix and hold type properties, about 7 or 8, and eventually kind of ran out of our own funding. So to use me in an anecdotal sense, once we needed additional funding, private money, as it were, that's how I found Trius Lending Partners. And they started providing some private lending, some capital, so that we could continue to kind of have our own real estate business, as it were. So Steve was lending to people like myself. And I think a really important part of that story is that he did so really successfully through some pretty turbulent times. I mean, specifically 2007, 8, 9, the global, crisis, as it were, which was really a real estate bubble, subprime mortgage lending. And the basis of how Steve has always lent and run this business as the founder has been safe, conservative underwriting, knowing what he's lending on and making sure that the investor and Trius Lending Partners are in the most strong and conservative position possible. That is a foundation of who we are. It is a foundation of what we do. It has never wavered to this day. And it's really allowed Trius Lending Partners to have a successful several decades subsequent to the 2003 through a multitude of different turbulent times, 2007, 8. But then, of course, we started seeing interest rates go up, and there was a lot of concern even going into 2018. I may not recall that, but a lot of people were calling for a crash, which of course obviously never happened. And then of course COVID, and actually that was another period during which Trius not only survived, but actually did incredibly well. And again, on the basis of great underwriting, working with great borrowers, and being safe and conservative, and really also focusing on the Mid-Atlantic market. It is always where Trius has lent to borrowers, and it's where we're going to stay. It's what we do, and we are just really highly focused in that. So what began in 2003 with just Steve Bond and his own personal money, he started raising as he grew, and it became kind of proof of concept, and private lending was working for him on an individual level. He then started raising money from friends and family, and it very much stayed a friends and family endeavor. And honestly, still to this day, amongst our investors, it really is friends and family. We know all of our investors. It's also a really cool part of our story. But today, 2024, we are at 110 million in assets under management. So a lot of growth over those 21 years, but really done and executed in a steady, consistent, and again, I'll keep using that word, but safe manner. That is the utmost importance to us. As I mentioned, so Trius Lending Partners is based and founded in Towson, Maryland, and obviously originally lent really primarily in the greater Baltimore County area and greater Maryland. We are mid-Atlantic focused, so we have grown beyond Baltimore, for sure, and even beyond Maryland. So we are actively lending and investing ourselves in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, DC. So just that mid-Atlantic market. And again, also really focused in single family, small multifamily, so kind of like 4 units or less, or small mixed use, small commercial. We're not doing any of these large syndications that you might see with, apartment complexes with hundreds of units. It's not what we do. And we mean really firmly kind of entrenched in what we're the best at, So we review thousands of properties each year, and that has kind of really also given us a firm basis and knowledge in what we lend on, and also the underwriting, and just kind of an active understanding of the markets themselves, because obviously the real estate market is a living organism, for lack of a term. It's always responding to interest rate fluctuations, economic conditions. And so we're absolutely on the ground, boots on the ground, looking at all of this every single day across thousands of properties a year. Some cool highlights about Trius Lending Partners. So 2021, it was awarded fastest growing privately held company in Maryland, and has made a bunch of kind of accolades for fast growing companies, recognition within Maryland in particular, greater mid-Atlantic market. But amongst all that, honestly, I think one of the most meaningful metrics is really our Google reviews. They are meaningful. So we have over 300 Google reviews, and we have a 5-star rating. And again, it's hard not to speak to it personally. Since I was a borrower, I had done actually 9 deals as a borrower with Trius Lending Partners before coming over to become the investor relations manager. But I can say this, they provide the utmost level of customer service. And they do the same. We do the same. We take great pride in that for our investors as well. But it's in all aspects of the business, both internal and external. How we treat people matters to us, and who we are and what we do really matters to us. And we take a lot of pride in the fact that people take the time to provide those reviews. And again, we do really find that meaningful. So kind of a cool thing, over 300 reviews on Google. It's pretty legit, as it were. So with that in mind, obviously we've got a lot of expertise. We remain focused in Mid-Atlantic, but in particular, kind of the so what of today is that we really focused over those 21 years on short-term notes to borrowers like myself who were looking to do fix and flip, buy, hold, rehab, all that kind of stuff. We are kind of into an actively managed buy and hold rental fund. I mean, the so what of it is that honestly, this is nothing unique, right? Like incredibly, it's being done across the nation. It's actually large scale companies, Blackstone, BlackRock. There's been a lot of attention placed to larger organizations, Berkshire Hathaway, doing similar endeavors, similar undertakings. And so we're looking, we believe in the market, and we're looking to do something similar. I would say that we really believe we can do an outstanding job of this because of our expertise and because of our high level of focus. We're already in this market. We're already looking at properties every single day. And we really believe in the power of single family homes, especially throughout the mid-Atlantic market. In the following slides, I'll kind of get into what we believe are the strengths of the mid in particular. And so we're really excited about the opportunity that exists in terms of appreciation, some cash on cash return, of course, the ability to utilize some tax advantage benefits like depreciation as well. So we think it will provide a great opportunity for investors, and is something we're here to discuss today. Before we move on, I hit along most of these already, but we really value great communication at Trius Lending Partners. I'm before you today, and if you are interested in investing with us, it would be me you work with personally. My cell phone is at the end of this presentation. I'm always happy to take a call. many calls, many emails, and answer questions, communication above all else, and of course, with kindness and thoughtfulness. We are looking to grow. It's exciting. It's fun to grow. I mean, I think our story from 2003 to present definitely shows that, but in a strong, kind of steady manner. Nothing crazy, as it were. Very much relationship based. Those same investors from 2003, those friends and family, they're still with us today. And I think that's a really cool part of the story. It's a testament to Mr. Steve Bond. And I should mention, I apologize. He's not here today. Normally he is, but in 2017, our CEO, Josh Shine, joined Steve. And that's really where Trius Lending became Trius Lending Partners. So those are the two partners. And absolutely, both remain incredibly focused on relationship and relationship based lending and investing. So both with our borrowers and with our investors. And then finally, we're always willing to get the job done and do what it takes. And, again, I don't want to jump in front of myself, but we're really aware that buy and hold single family rentals, it is a job. It needs to be managed professionally and it needs to be taken very seriously. And that it is a lot of work. And again, personally, um, my husband and I ended up getting up to about 20 rental properties, and I have some stories. If you ever want to be entertained, feel free to call. But for sure, it is hard work, and we know that, but it's work we fundamentally believe in, and then also just find really exciting and joyful. So with that in mind, we'll go to the next. So a little bit of background. The state of single family rentals, and all real estate is a bit local, right? So there's a lot of national trends that we can talk about and look at, and I will probably reference almost to kind of compare and contrast with the Mid-Atlantic market throughout, this presentation today. So we'll start at kind of a higher level and then drill in with the understanding that what is occurring in perhaps Florida or Texas is not necessarily actually what is occurring, of course, in Maryland or Virginia, as it were. But some quick statistics with that in mind. There's about 335 million people living in the United States, about 135 million dwellings. And, amongst single family homes, so not multifamily, but just single family, about 35% are rentals and 12% of total occupied housing. So this now we're looking at a much kind of larger picture to include multifamily, 12% of total occupied housing units. Single family rental market has had a lot going for it. I mean, obviously, COVID ushered in kind of a new era of American housing and what people wanted, and more specifically, where and how they wanted to live. But single family rentals have been buoyed by a strong job market. And, rental demand is also seeing some kind of generational shifts, as it were. We are seeing, especially with Gen Z, which is one of the largest, it's demographically, they're starting to do household formation, create households, start to consume available housing, for lack of a better term. So that's been a real, essentially, driver of need for housing. And more specifically, they have shown an indication that they like single family housing as opposed to maybe some like larger multifamily or other kind of housing opportunities, as it were. So we're seeing continued population growth, household formation, and immigration has, had some level of pressure on available housing. What that will be in the future, I don't know. But at least in the last, 3 or 4 years, immigration has definitely been at play. Sustained job growth, and also real income growth. So obviously inflationary pressures, and that's kind of I'm famous for this. I get ahead of myself, so I apologize in advance. But so this will kind of, these two things will go together. But we obviously, no conversation about American economics is relevant without a discussion of inflation. But even within that, since you have seen income growth, you have actually seen some net overall income growth and affordability. So despite inflationary pressures, you're still seeing people able to afford homes, and that is kind of informing when, where, and how they live as well, and maybe their choice to be in a single family house over something else. Age demographics, and I mentioned Gen Z. And then finally, we are starting to see some environmental considerations that affect housing locality decisions. I would argue from an academic sense, when you continue to look at trends and where people are living or moving, as it were. I mean, Florida, of course, comes to mind. I mean, no conversation about housing in the United States is full without a discussion of Florida. But Florida is, of course, under a lot of pressure due to some, hurricane season, all that kind of stuff. We see people thinking about it. I do think that when you are forward facing in housing consideration, environmental considerations themselves will become a part of that. Access to insurance, underwriting, the ability to get a loan, and insurance itself. I mean, those are going to continue to be factors. Um, the great part of it for us is that they are not factors that have really affected the mid-Atlantic market in so much as they have affected other parts of the United States. Going down to affordability, home prices are up, down payment savings are down. So affordability remains an issue for people looking to buy. And we are seeing a lot of folks continue to rent due to not just, affordability itself, but just that home prices are at an all-time high. And often it is more economical for them to rent than to buy. It makes more financial sense. We are seeing cost burden in households despite overall income growth. And so they're having to make decisions about how they live, not, but they don't necessarily want to do it at the cost of where they live. So we're still seeing people really want single family homes, but they, again, going back to it, they might not be able to afford to buy. It might be in their best interest to rent. And of course, this is also coupled with interest rates and just the total cost of ownership. Another factor that is starting to grow some level of momentum and discussion are taxes, property taxes. And of course, after a series of years of kind of run up, obviously post COVID, so 21, 22, 23, you saw home price appreciation increase in a statistically significant way. Well, local municipalities are not going to let themselves be left behind. So what's happening is that property taxes are also, of course, increasing at a pretty steady clip. And so are household insurance costs, even outside of those areas we just discussed, that have environmental considerations. Even outside of that, we're seeing really significant impacts in insurance. And when you couple that with property taxes as well, that total cost of ownership is just really gone up alongside the house price itself. And so again, it's a lot of pressure on the single family market, and especially at price points that one would deem more affordable. So we're also seeing that there's often kind of a multiple number of, I guess, for lack of a better term, different housing supplies. So how houses priced a million and above and how they're selling and who's buying them, of course, is very different, looks different, feels different than houses that might be at a $200,000 to $300,000 price point. So different economics behind all that, different buyers, and you can kind of see it in the numbers. And then finally, a supply shortage. Interestingly, since the 2008 crisis, what we saw was never a full recovery in house building. The years immediately thereafter, so 2008 to 2013, really were bringing very limited inventory, in particular for single family homes. And I'm talking on a national, basis, but not very much being brought to market. And then, because of the time it takes to do building permits and all of that, you continue to see a slow and delayed recovery and catch up, which leaves us typically right now, I forget, but it's several million behind in where we need to be in terms of new houses just being brought to market. So continued supply shortage, and we expect that to stay the same. Next slide, please. So our target markets, as I mentioned, we are very much a mid-Atlantic based company. We intend to stay that way. That's what we know and what we love. Maryland has some great things going for it. Really strong industry, biotech, government, of course, also education. There's a lot of educational, institutions, and actually healthcare as well. You know, Maryland is a really kind of interesting sweet spot because not only, do we have Baltimore and all the surrounding industry, but it's also a tie between sort of our northern brethren up in New York and then straight into DC and Maryland. We really, really benefit from that. About 7% population growth from 2010 to 2020. And actually, you're continuing to see that same rate about now. Biotech, defense, education, healthcare, and median home sales price of about 335,000. So relatively affordable. Great market, GDP sitting around 3%. Listen, we're from Maryland. We love Maryland, and we're going to be buying in Maryland. So pretty simple. Let's go to the next one. Virginia and DC, again, I think we're all probably pretty familiar, very similar characteristics as to Maryland when it comes to housing, population centers, income drivers, GDP, and all of that. Again, really important. We're still seeing population growth. And again, it's hard not to compare with Texas and Florida and even like the Carolinas are picking up a lot of steam. But we are still seeing population growth. People are still moving here. And so really we feel good about both of these markets. Virginia, of course, has a lot of the same characteristics, technology, defense, and healthcare. District of Columbia, of course, is really defined by the government, but the government's not going anywhere. So, and it tends to come with some really good paying jobs. What you will see again is that median home price for Virginia is pretty much the same as Maryland, interestingly. And DC, you have a pretty high, so 600K. So the cost of living in DC is pretty significant. We do think in our modeling that for that reason, we will remain primarily focused in Maryland and Virginia. But if there's opportunities for DC, we love the appreciation there, feel very strongly about as a market, and we lend on it regularly. We understand incredibly well and very interested in it. Let's go to the next. So the Trius Real Estate Rental Fund, and that's really been the focus of kind of what we're talking about here initially. I will, at the end, address a couple of our other investment opportunities. And I know we actually have some active investors on listening right now who are invested with us in our other investment opportunities. So we will get to that. But it's cool to see you all. But so the rental fund, again, and I apologize to reiterate, but we're really looking to take advantage of what we've done and how we've done it and apply it in a long-term buy and hold scenario. So we're already looking at the properties. We have the contacts in place. This is what we do. This is who we know. Josh, our CEO, if he was on today, he would kind of talk about how he gets calls regularly from brokers in the area. Hey, I've got this portfolio somebody's looking to sell. They would like to do it as a portfolio, as it were, and then try to do it without transaction costs, this, that, and the other. And so we really have had a lot of opportunities over the past 3 to 5 years, and we're looking and well positioned to finally kind of make use of those. And of course, it's something we absolutely believe in. We're going to focus on off-market properties. And also I'd like to kind of, not only are we going to focus on off-market, but we also want to focus on properties that are pretty ready to go. And what I mean by that is if the house requires work, we are not opposed to that. But if the work would require a permit, we are probably not interested. So the type of buy and holds we're looking to do, we're absolutely open and quite frankly, it's a win to do a tiny bit of value add. So paint, carpet, maybe updating some countertops or a little bit, bathroom vanity, no problem. we have the systems and the people and the processes in place to get that work done, get it done efficiently, get it done in a effective, cost-effective manner. What we're not necessarily looking to do is replace an 1890 house that has knob and tube wiring with all new electrical. That is its own undertaking. So that's, I'm just using that as an example, but full electrical, full plumbing, all that kind of stuff. We're not necessarily interested in. Again, it kind of goes back to, you know, we're professionals in the business, and we're really aware that rental properties, single family rental properties, they are a business as well, and we want to make sure that we're doing the best at managing that, and for us that's not a large level. I think we can go on from here. So currently we are raising 20 million in support of this effort, and we're actively fundraising. We really excited about this. We're trying. We've already had a number of investors invest with us, and so we're pretty excited to really kind of get this thing going, as it were. It is a private closed-ended vehicle, so a 5 to 7 year investment period. So initial commitment is 5 years, with the option we can extend to 7. And the so what, the why of that is really it allows the fund to make the best decision in support of the fund and kind of deal with market conditions. So more specifically, if we see that appreciation is ramping up in a meaningful way towards the latter end of the fund, and again, we can kind of do our own forecasting, and if somebody wants me to drill in on that during Q&A, I can totally do it. Like, what do you think 2025 is going to look like versus 2027, 2028? I hesitate to really talk about anything further than 2025, 2026, but what do we think? Why would it potentially go to 7 years? Well, it's because the upside would be really worth it. But that's why you hold longer. I mean, that is the business and the game of single family rentals. Minimum contribution to invest is 100,000, and this fund is open to accredited investors only. So, real quick definition of accreditation: it is individual net worth 1 million or more, excluding your primary residence. So, just personal home. And there's actually, quite frankly, a lot of definitions of accredited investor. And again, we could take it offline if you had a question, wanted to discuss, am I accredited based on this or that? On an individual level, I'd be super happy to entertain like kind of any of those questions offline. But the other most common way people achieve kind of accredited status is individual income in excess of 200,000 a year, or if you're married, filing jointly, 300,000 or more a year. Our targeted IRR will be 14 to 16% at the back end of that 5 to 7 year hold period. We've got some pretty robust models in place. Again, we're not, I'm not going to go deep diving into Excel spreadsheets. Else I'd probably lose everybody, to be honest, today. But if that was something you're really curious, you kind of want to see the math and like where we're going and what it's based upon, super happy to have that conversation. A bit of the basics behind the 14 to 16% IRR is that we used a basis of 5% appreciation. We're really following the Case-Shiller index in this case. And we feel that it will, across the next 5 to 7 years, continue to hold, that historical pattern that began in the 1980s will continue to be true. Not every year is created equal. We're super aware of that. But if you apply that, to a 5 or 7 year period, we do believe in that. So, and again, I can get into further detail, but that's, that's a big part of the basis of the 14 to 16% IRR. We are going to have leverage debt, and so we're going to have 60 to 70% loan to value. What that means is that we will have significant down payment, skin in the game, for lack of a better term. But we are going to utilize financing to make sure that we can buy more real estate, right? The goal is to obviously have a lot of single family rentals and really take advantage of the appreciation and value they bring on a larger scale. So 60%, 60 to 70% loan to value. And the fund will also be providing a quarterly cash distribution. Again, based off our modeling, and I can geek out at any given point in time, but based on our modeling, we expect that to be around a 6% kind of cash on cash return paid out quarterly. Um, Kind of going back real quickly, that 14 to 16% IRR, that will be based upon, a capital event at the end of the 5 to 7 years. So what happens? You invest with us, you're getting your quarterly kind of cash dividends, but the real so what is at the end of the 5 to 7 years, we either sell those properties, refinance them, but do some large scale capital event and then pay out our investors. And that's where we really get you the significant upside and return for your investment, the good stuff. But other good stuff, benefits, depreciation. We love some depreciation. I know I have people listening today that love depreciation. So we will actually be able to utilize depreciation if you are an investor in some of our other investment opportunities. That has never been something we could offer. This is finally our chance to do so. And so, we'll be able to do that. It would reflect on what's called a K-1 document as the tax document. And again, not to get too far into the weeds, but we could kind of talk about that offline if people have specific questions about depreciation. I often see that people do. So um, finally, well, maybe perhaps less quantifiable, real estate really is its own hedge against inflation, right? So if we're talking about the Case-Shiller index, we're talking about year over year appreciation. It is in its own way a hedge against inflationary pressures, and it also provides diversification. Uh, we know our investors really well at Trius Lending Partners, and amongst that, we also know that typically we are kind of one part of their personal portfolio, their investment portfolio. We absolutely know, understand, and expect that our investors are typically also in the stock market. They're small business owners. They are salespeople themselves, or any number of things. They're actually real estate professionals. A lot of our investors are also real estate professionals themselves. And what we have to offer, what this fund has to offer, is a diversification away from, I mean, listen, Nvidia is fantastic. Amazon, it's all good. We never are trying to be them. We're different. We're pretty steady, pretty stable, but we do provide diversification, and we take pride in that. So real quickly, and then we'll get to Q&A. I know that we do have some Q&A here. So for those, and again, since I know we do have existing investors, but for those who may not be as familiar with us, I've focused mostly on what we have to offer with the real estate fund. But we do have two other investment opportunities available for investors. The first, they're very similar, quite frankly, and that's in support of the active loans we're making to borrowers. So we have what's called direct note investing, and it's open to both accredited investors. And really, it is you as an individual investing on a single particular property or note. So Jessica Franta investing on 123 Main Street in the amount of $100,000. It's a shorter term, so average 6 to 12 months. It is also open to self-directed IRAs, so that is really cool. We have a lot of investors that utilize self-directed IRAs, and I would be happy to kind of get with somebody offline and discuss that. And 401k rollovers. Average return for that is 8 to 10%. And then kind of moving over, so Trius Fund 1, it's direct note investing, but just based upon a pool of notes. It is open to accredited investors only, and it does allow for actually the reinvestment of dividends or interest. So it provides our investors the ability to compound their returns, which is really powerful. We see all sorts of things. We've got investors that are going to be working and are kind of in the height of their careers, and reinvesting is the best, to help them grow their portfolio. And then we have investors that utilize us, for example, as a portion of kind of like their retirement plan and savings. And so they want to be paid out monthly, and that's also something we can support. 1 year commitment for the fund. And otherwise, then we kind of extend from there. Also open to self-directed IRAs. And the fund does have some tax advantages that are tied to the 2017 Tax Jobs and Relief Act. Anyways, it's qualified business income, and it allows for 20% deduction. And so we pass that along to our investors, and it lessens essentially their tax burden, and that's reflected on their K-1 at the end of the year. So all really cool opportunities, and definitely interested in some of this, please reach out to me. I think with that in mind, I've held quite the filibuster. I apologize. I talked longer than I thought I would. I'm so sorry. So I think we'll start with some Q&A. I'm gonna start in Q&A. I think I see webinar chat as well. So I'll start in Q&A and then kind of go from there. Do you have any information on whether and how the size of the slice for me single family rental has changed over time as compared to other segments? Oh, interesting. Think I think what you're asking is, and correct me if I'm wrong, are we seeing a statistically significant change in how consumers are selecting single family versus maybe like apartment rental, like that kind of thing, like larger multifamilies and some of that product type? Um, they're still coming out with the data on that, so if you I follow Housing Wire and actually the Harvard Joint Center for Studying Housing. There's a lot of really cool resources, and there's still a lot of research being done because of, well, quite frankly, you saw COVID kind of reshape under the magnifying glass of COVID of 2020, 2021. We are absolutely seeing this single family rental product dominate over multifamily. What that specific percentage is, I would have to go back and fact check myself. I wouldn't want to say something erroneous, but it has become statistically significant. And I will say this, it is significant enough that what you're seeing are that new builds and construction, you're seeing entire single family home rental communities come online. So builders and investors on large scale are actually bringing that product as opposed to more large, multifamily. There's actually a lot of backed up multifamily as well that's going to keep coming online in the next year or two. And so supply is really kind of meeting demand on the large multifamily apartment, whereas supply is absolutely not meeting demand on the single family. And if you attend conferences, you're seeing it, you're talking to builders, they're bringing more and more of that online. What the specific numbers are, I don't know, but I do think we've seen the demand itself kind of change and update. I could get you more data. I love geeking out on data, but that's sort of that. Do we plan to carry out cost segregation? Sorry, I was just gonna to take advantage, yes, of accelerated depreciation. 100% yes. So short answer, yes, we plan to do all of that. And again, as a side note, if you have nuanced accounting questions, I am not the smartest person in the room. And the first thing I would do is set up a meeting with you and your respective accountant and actually our accounting firm. So happy to do that and reach out to me. But yes, we will absolutely be doing cost seg. We will be doing accelerated depreciation. Minimum and maximum investment levels for direct note investment and Trius Fund 1. Trius Fund 1, 100,000, and it's very similar to the rental fund. It's outlined in the private placement memorandum, so we cannot deviate from that really. So 100,000 for that. Direct note investment, we like to stay around 100K. But if you know me and you know me well, I really take joy in, quite frankly, anybody investing with us. So I've definitely worked with investors, brought them in maybe a little bit less than that, 50K or something. Because what we found is that, it's wonderful to get you investing with us. It's wonderful to work with our investors, and they stay. We take pride in that. So with no investment, I can work under 100K, and obviously the goal is to get you up to 100K eventually, but we can start at a lower level. Rental fund and Trius Fund One, the pool loans both start at 100. I think I think I answered everything in the Q&A, I hope. And so I'm going to go over to chat really quickly. Hi, Sudhi. Um, Sudeep asked, can you clarify the 6% cash on cash quarterly return if we invest 100K? Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of clarity on that. You know, the rental fund is also sort of, lack of a better term, kind of living organism. So, with rentals, and this can happen on an individual level, you acquire the rental and there is a stabilization period, right? So you buy it, you get the renter in there, you make sure any repairs are required were done, and you start seeing kind of a minimum level of income. That 6% is, averaged over several years, because what happens is that year one and two have kind of minimal cash on cash return. But then as rents continue to rise, which again, we've modeled and I feel very strongly about, um, you start seeing higher returns. So quite frankly, by the end of year 4 and 5, your cash on cash is higher than year 1 and 2. But but on average, do we get 1,500 interest quarterly? It would be 1,500 quarterly, correct? Because it is annualized. I think that's your question, Sudeep, is it annualized or is it quarterly? It's annualized, so it'd be 1,500. And it would go up. Essentially, you guys would receive, the net increase and benefit as rents go up. It's interesting, and again, I tend to geek out, so I apologize, but we're watching everything. So HUD released their 2025 fair market value rental rents, and after several years leading up to 2022, 2023, you'd seen some really high increases in HUD fair market rental rates, so like 9%, 10%. This last year was pretty minimal. I want to say like 1.5% off the top of my head. I think what we're going to see, and the only reason it's impactful is because obviously that's informing Section 8 government subsidized housing, but that's kind of informing the greater rental market, private, small single family holders. And so I do think 2025 might be a year of slightly slower growth, but I actually think then you're going to see 2026 beyond some other inflationary pressures. That's, of course, just Jessica forecasting. Unfortunately, it's being recorded, so you can make fun of me in the future if I'm wrong, but I think I'd be pretty right on. Okay, so you wrote, oh, Sudeep's the best. Yeah, so he wrote, as you know, I've worked at Trius as a borrower and an investor. Thank you for the kind words. And he knows all of us very well, Steve and Josh. And we are super, super grateful to have you invest with us, and also your recommendation. This product would be great for tired of being landlords. That's exactly it. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Owning rentals is a business. It is a professional business. Not only does it involve what we all sort of anecdotally know, which is that you could get the call that the toilet's overflowing in the middle of the night, but you need to be aware of government regulations. You need to be aware of oversight. You need to be aware of regulatory requirements. And we are, and we have all those processes in place. We do have the teams, the handyman, the repairman, the electricians. And I think that's actually really not just in returns, but that's part of the value we provide. You get the benefit of appreciation, but you have professionals running the business. So absolutely, this is most beneficial for investors who are doing other things, who are working full time, running their own businesses, have families, and want to support their families, but also spend time with their families and not respond to a call about a toilet at 1 a.m. This is the product for you. You get the benefit of appreciation, you get depreciation, you get all of those things, but you aren't answering those calls, and you're getting a service provider through Trius Lending Partners that's experienced and super focused in a market that or if you don't know, if you're from California, that I think is pretty evident. We're happy to talk about at length all day long, and what it has to offer. So yes, absolutely, this product is for you. Thank you for that question, those comments, CD. I think that's it. Oh, nope, more Q&A. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Is the investor perspective or private placement memorandum for all these offerings available to download and review from a website or request? Really honestly, we should just put them on our website. I mean, but right now, just reach out and you can request. So on our website, there's literally like a request more information button. It goes straight to me. I'm it. I am the end of the road. So if you just hit that button, and then I can directly respond to you and provide all those documents. But we're happy to provide everything, even our operating agreements. No secrets here. So just let me know, reach out, and I'll send you all of that. And can I speak to the criteria for the selection of specific properties, single family rentals for the portfolio? Do we target specific areas, proximity to employment centers, configurations, and then proposed use student housing section 8? Um, yeah, I will candidly, we're gonna be very, very careful about the areas we invest in. So we know, for example, and I'm not trying to, for example, there's parts of inner downtown Baltimore we are just not interested in investing in for the rental fund, candidly. We really like single family homes in working class neighborhoods that are secondary markets. And what I mean by that is there are markets that feed primary centers. So your surrounding suburbs around Baltimore. First, you're seeing a lower kind of overall median cost of home. But these people are working, professionals. They're blue collar, white collar. They are, making good W-2 income and they're living in these neighborhoods. I was talking about how builders are creating these build to rent communities. It's great. It's a product that's needed, but I think there's always going to be value in communities where people live. I kind of can't. I'll be interested to watch how some of that plays out, to be honest. Like if you have a community of all renters, what will that feel like? I think we all kind of know what a working community where people live and their kids are going to school, like what that feels like and the value that provides to a renter. So, very much um, more affordable. So kind of your price point of, 250 to 300K, single family homes. That's what we're targeting in these secondary communities that support these larger metropolitan areas. That's specifically what we're looking for. And yes, we are not looking to do any student housing, but we are looking to do some Section 8, not all Section 8, but we're absolutely open to it. We do think Section 8 provides value to both the community, but also us as investors. There is, and that is also why, for example, we're watching the HUD fair market value rents and making sure that we're really educated on the values and then, of course, how they would apply and inform the purchase of single family homes. So I would say Section 8 is not going to be the majority of what we do, but it could, 20 or 30% of what we have absolutely could be Section 8. Any specifics of single family homes, we'd say, again, parts of, and I'm using this as an example, parts of downtown Baltimore row homes, we are going to be staying away from that. And that's an example, but that kind of stuff. I really kind of standalone single family homes, townhomes, row homes, in nice secondary markets. That's what we'll be focused on for sure. Let's see here. Fortunately, we send out the recording to those attending. Yeah, absolutely. We have a list of everybody that attended today. I'm sorry to talk so much. I get really excited about this stuff. So we feel free to fast forward as you wish, but we will absolutely send a recording out and then you can multitask while I talk about the DC market. But and really, I guess if I could, as we close this out, just we're super happy to answer questions and we're super happy to take meetings and get more specific and meet with accountants, all the things. I think that's part of the Trius Lending Partners magic is our accessibility and our openness. And so, not only can we send out the recording and the documents and all that kind of stuff, but we're always here to answer questions, support. Is there a waterfall breakdown for the return of investor principal and achieving a certain threshold preferred level of investor return upon a capital event? So, and what is the investor sponsor split residuals thereafter? So this is all really laid out in the private placement memorandum. I have most of it memorized, but at the risk of misquoting it, I would rather just send you the private placement memorandum and then go over it. There is the short answer. And one thing I would like to add is that, so this is, it's a $20 million raise, but as we fundraise, we are going to be buying. And so for investors that are investing now, time now, they are going to receive the benefit to include the benefit applied to the capital event, essentially greater than an investor that might invest 9 months from now, as we close down 20 million. I hope that makes sense. It's more work on our end with our accounting team, but essentially, if you're investing with us today, then you should be recognizing the appreciation, the upside, the depreciation starting today. And you should be recognizing it moreover than somebody who invests a year from now. So it's also kind of, there is a waterfall breakdown, but there is also benefit to investing now rather than later. And then I will say kind of, I do think that, we're going to close the 20 million down in the next year or so. So there is kind of a level of timeliness on this fund as opposed to perhaps the other investment opportunities. But I will send you the private placement memorandum, and we can also look at the investor sponsor split. Really, how it's broken out in that is that we, Trius Lending Partners, are incentivized to get you, the investor, the highest returns possible. So you guys get most of, dominant amount of the returns until we reach, I don't know, 16. I don't want to quote it and get it wrong, but we can kind of look at that together for sure. All right. 12:56. I think, are there any other questions? And I can always stay on for another couple of minutes. But we'll get copy of the webinar out. We have information on everybody attended, can send private placement memorandum, subscription agreements, just kind of all those docs for people's review. And I guess finally, thank you all for attending. Thank you for taking the time to be here today and put up with my rambling, as it were. Super grateful. Oh, thank you as well. Thank you very much. I love this stuff, so I'm always grateful to talk real estate. Um, I think that's it. So with 3 minutes to spare, we did it. And again, I'm here on our website. You can reach out to me. I know we had actually posted kind of like a contact us. My cell phone is on there. My cell phone's on our website. My email, jfranta@trislending's on our website. And I look forward to talking to y'all. And thank you again for attending today. I think that's it.